so we can hear your story if you want.
Okay, so I feel like I have a whole bunch of stories, but the one that always comes to mind was this one, and I used to work at this um haunted haunted house during Halloween season, and
Oh no.
it was like I think I only did it for like one season, but it was like in high school, sophomore year of high school, and it like there were a whole bunch of people in the house, and there's also a corn maze. There was a house, and then after the tour of the house, then they do the corn maze. And I worked there, and I never did it actually like beforehand. I just started working there out of the blue, and people, you start to talk with the people that have worked there before, like for years, just through the seasons, and they say like this place is really haunted. Like it really is. And I could feel it myself, like if whenever you're in the house, like I worked the house, and I always had this one station, and I just scare people in this one spot, and it just keep going and going and going. But everybody would say like you can feel something, like something is so off in the house, and people have said so many stories about it. Like in the corn maze, people say in the corn maze there's always, at least once a year, there'd be a little girl in a dress that would like run through the maze, like crying or screaming. And I never experienced that, but so many people would vouch that like they have seen it. And there's just like a little girl that would always run through the maze, like screaming or something. And I was like, dang, that's scary. Like that's freaky. I don't know if everybody's lying or what, but then people told other stories of like the haunted house really consisted of two like trailers, like mobile homes. And there were these people, the people that owned the place, they got all their friends and they like had a sleepover in the second trailer, like for fun, just to see what would happen. And there were like footsteps, like full on people walking in the other rooms. And all these stories, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And also like whenever I was working it, maybe like before we actually started, or like after all the people have gone through, and it's just like super late at night, nothing's going on, and I'm just like by myself walking through it, like leaving the house, you'd always just get this really weird feeling of like something is watching you or something's behind you. And like sometimes I'd see something out of the corner of my eye. So it's just a really weird haunted place. But that's like the backstory. So then I was working one night, and they said, Max, there's not enough people in the corn maze. We need you to work the corn maze. And I was like, okay, fine. And like I'd never worked the corn maze, and I was like, I wasn't scared of it, but like it's kind of scary working a haunted house. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's a weird feeling. Like you shouldn't feel scared, but it's kind of creepy working one. So I went to the corn maze that night, and I was working it, and I was the very first person to scare. Like I was the first person people would walk into, and I would scare them. And what the maze was like at the start was, it was like a fork. Right at the start, people would walk through, and they would either go left or right, and then it would like meet back up. It's like a circle, you know what I'm saying? So I couldn't scare both sides. I could only be on the right side. So I was hiding in like this little cubby thing I broke through the corn on the right side. And I was just waiting, and like there'd be long periods of time where people wouldn't come through, and like 15, 20 minutes almost. Like sometimes it'd be like 20 minutes, people still haven't gone through. So I'd just like be on my phone, not hunched over. I'd just be like standing in the middle of the corn maze, like in the walkway. And right before people come in, they like scream a code word. Like they scream scarecrow. And then I scream scarecrow, and then everybody screams down the line, so everybody's ready to scare. And then I'm on my phone, like I have my mask on. I'm on my phone, just like standing in the middle of the corn maze, and then I hear walking, like heavy footsteps, and I'm like, oh crap! Like the people who were supposed to say people are coming didn't say anything, and I hear them walking. And I'm like, oh crap. So I turn off my phone real quick, and I look up, because I'm like right where I can see the fork, like people choosing left or right.
Yes.
And I look up, and I see a huge, like human, like tall shadow figure.
What?
Like it was as tall as the corn. I swear to God, like.
What?
I've told so many people this story.
You saw a what? You saw a what?
So I saw, it looked like a human. So what happened was I looked up, and it was not going my way. It went the other way on the fork. Like it went left instead of right. But I saw it walking. Like I saw the side profile of it and like the back profile of it. And it was just like a black void shadow, like it was a human figure. Like I could see arms and legs, but it was like literally just a shadow. Like there was like lights off in the distance to where you could see like a face or like clothes or stuff, but there was no detail on this thing. It was just a shadow. But I could see the arms and the legs, and it was just footsteps, and like my heart went down to my toes. Like it was the scariest feeling ever. Like it was insane, because at that moment, like from half a second looking at it, I knew it was like not a human. Like it was obviously a ghost. Like it wasn't a person on stilts. It was just like literally a void. So then I looked up, and I just ran into my cubby. Like I turned around, ran into my cubby, and I just like went in the fetal position, and I just heard it. I literally just heard it like walk around the circle of the fork.
Whoa.
And I heard all the footsteps, and then keep going through the maze. And like I like did not want to do anything after that. But then I'm like, the whole night I am freaked out. Like I'm just hiding. Like I'm not the one working. I'm like the one being scared at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not even scaring. So then after, I'm talking, like we all meet up, like all the workers, and I talk to the people in the corn, and I'm like, yo guys, or no, they walk up to me and they're like, hey Max, do you want to like switch positions tomorrow, like in the corn maze? And I'm like, why? Because I was gonna ask them the same thing. Like that's the first thing we were gonna say to each other. He was like, Max, do you want to like switch positions? And I was like, why? Because I had this weird feeling. He was like, no reason. And there were like three of them. They were like, no reason. And we're like, no, for real, you need to tell me why. And they were like, we saw something. And I was like, I saw it too. And they were like, and we both explained exactly what we saw. We were like, a huge like shadow person, like black ominous figure. And I was like, oh my God, I saw the exact same thing. And they were like, dude. And I said it was like walking through the maze. And they were like, dude, it wasn't even walking through the maze. It was like walking through the corn. Like we heard, they were all laying down. Like it was a group of three of them, like laying down, about to scare like a whole group. And they just heard like corn being pushed over. And they're like, who's breaking all the corn? Like who's about to prank us? And they see it just like walk right over them. And they're like, literally like people, they're like crying, they're like freaking out, and they, after it's like so many feet down the road, they follow it and they just see it like walk out of the corn maze and run into the woods. Like run into the woods that's like not a part of the maze, just like random like forest woods.
I need to go to this place.
Wow.
And it was like, that was the very first time we'd ever, like, anyone had ever seen that ghost. Like, everyone's talked about the little girl that would like run through screaming, but like no one had ever seen that before. And like, I'm just saying, I saw it with my own two eyes. Like, I swear to God, like it was real. It was crazy.
So what did this figure? Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
I was just saying, sometimes you have to see it to believe it, and then even when you believe it, you're like, no one is going to ever believe me about this. I've had an experience like that before where we'd actually captured some video, and we got back to the car, and it sounded so my friend's phone that I was recording on was an iPhone, and it put itself into slow mode. But during this time, something super scary happened. I had like this blob come running towards me. It had no like arms, legs, or anything like that. It just was running towards me. So we like panic and start screaming. But we get back to the car and plug the phone in, and we're listening to the recording, and it goes into slow mode, and we didn't realize, but the sound on the slow mode sounded like it was just a demonic lion. And I had tears in my eyes. I'm like, no.
What does a demonic lion sound like? Maybe like this. Let me try.
Exactly like that.
Okay.
And we're in the car, we've got the volume up really loud, and we hear this, and I had tears in my eyes, and I was like, I actually looked at my friends and I said, no one is ever going to believe us.
Guys, my special guests for tonight are Dogeboy and Aussie Samantha, and we are discussing paranormal activities, tales from the crypt, from the dark side, from the netherworld, whatever you want to call it. Dogeboy just shared with us a very interesting story, of one full of suspense, corn mazes, and apparent slender men. Would you say it was that? What?
That's scary as shit.
Yeah, that one was really scary, Dogeboy. Would you describe the figure that you saw as a slender man?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good comparison. It was really tall and really slender, but it wasn't like, you know how Slender Man, like, he had the white, like, he had the suit, he had the white face, like, this was very tall and very slender, like, as tall as the corn, like, twice as tall as me, but it was just a shadow, like a shadow with arms and legs. It was crazy.
Have you ever watched the movie Signs, the Alien movie, with Mel Gibson in it?
Yes.
No.
I have.
It's like that. They live amongst the cornfields, and the aliens are there. And the way you're describing what you've seen, these really tall, slender aliens were in this movie. And I actually just watched it again yesterday, that movie. So it's crazy that I watched that movie about cornfields and slender people in them, and then you're telling this story right now.
Actually, I'm looking it up right now, and I see the aliens, and like it wasn't walking like in that fashion, like hunched over and stuff. It was like a very upright, like neutral position.
See, and the way you're explaining it right now, the way you explained that whole story, I 100% believe you. Just from how I'm hearing your voice saying it, like, I know you're telling the truth, and that's scary. I would have loved to be there.
I don't know if you would have loved to be there. I thought, like, I was just praying. Like, I was praying to God for, like, 10 seconds that it wasn't going, like, my path. it went around the other path, and I was like, I could just hear the footsteps. Like, it was so crazy.
Wow.
It's,
Wow. Was this whatever it is that you saw, Dogeboy, did it have a hat?
no hat. It was just, I mean, yeah, it was just like a featureless shadow figure. No hat. I couldn't see fingers. It was so fast. Like, it was like a second that I actually saw it, but like in that second, you can tell, like I could tell this thing was not human. Like, I was trying to like convince myself it was a person on stilts, but like I was like, oh my god, like it's just somebody trying to prank us, because like, you know, that's totally believable, like somebody that's working there, like just trying to prank everybody. But like,
Yeah.
it was like a black hole. Like, you would shine a light at it and you wouldn't see anything. That kind of
Did it have like hair? I know you said it has no features or anything, but could you tell that if it had any like hair?
No, it was it was really just like a just featureless, like a stick man. Like, no, I mean, it was a human, like, or like human like. It wasn't like a actual stick man, but you know what I mean. I couldn't see anything on it.
Wow. Wow. And some of your fellow workers said they also saw this same thing.
Yeah, they described the exact same thing, and then like they like confirmed to me, like I could confirm myself it wasn't like a person on stilts, but they told the story. They were like, yeah, we like, after it passed us fully and we were safe, we followed it, and then once we saw it in the street lights, like passing the road, they were like, it was not a person on stilts. Like, it was just a shadow. It was, yeah.
Did it make any noise at all that you heard? Was there anything audible about it, or was it just totally silent?
Just totally silent footsteps. Like, I could just hear the footsteps. And
So
that's the same thing they described, my other people.
So it could, footsteps like in the cornfield?
Yeah. The scariest footsteps you could ever imagine.
Maybe like that.
No breathing, no nothing. It was like someone just holding their breath.
Wow. And then it just kind of sailed it ran into the forest?
Yep.
So it sounds like you did see this thing for more than a second.
No, that's their story. Like, what they...
Okay.
Like, the coworkers that were on the completely other corner of the cornfield. Like, they were the farthest away from me.
Yeah.
And they said, like, it was just pushing down the corn. Like, pushing it all over. Like, about basically walking right over them.
Yeah.
And then they said, like, it ran into the woods. Like, I only looked up, looked at it for a second.
Yeah.
And then just like ran and hid.
Wow. So do you think he paid admission?
Probably not.
Oh, okay. Okay. So Sam, what do you think of Dogeboy's story there? Pretty freaky stuff, huh?